Hey, welcome back, house hunters. This time we're going to talk about the potential hidden costs in selling your home and what you can do to save the most money possible. Here's some things that you really should know when it comes to selling your home. Let's start with the most important part of the expense of selling your house, which is the commission, of course. So as you know, commissions are divided between the listing broker and the buyer broker, and commissions are fully negotiable. You want to decide in advance. The first part is how much to pay the buyer broker, and I'll help to show you how the market is actually working and how all of the homes that have been sold in your area, what commissions were paid to the buyer broker on that sale. So as we build up the discussion between us about how much commission is the correct commission to pay for the sale of your property in your situation, the first step in that process is to figure out how much cooperation we should be paying to buyer brokers. I'll help to show you how that works. Now, our commission, I no doubt, will not be the cheapest that you can find out there. But I do think after reviewing all of these videos and our customized proven marketing plan of action for your case, that you will decide that our services are valuable, and that even though we aren't really quite the cheapest, hopefully you will decide that we are the best. Next is the closing cost breakdown. As the seller of a property, besides the commission, you need to know that there are some additional closing cost expenses. And those would be true even if you decided somehow to sell your property yourself, for example. Those three major expenses are, first, the cost of the title insurance. This is the insurance that kicks in case somehow the buyer bought the property from you without your ability to legally sell the property. This is the title insurance for the seller. There's also an additional policy. Buyer will sometimes pay for that if they're using a loan. This is called the buyer's or lender's policy. Okay, this is title insurance, and generally you'll see that it's required. People won't buy the property without the guarantee of an insurance backing them up in case somehow later along the way there's a legal dispute about legal title to the property. Next is the escrow. Escrow fees do vary some throughout the county. The two major ways that escrow companies work are either flat fee or so-called a la carte, right? So in your particular situation, most of our clients use a flat fee escrow, and the escrow charges the same fee regardless of your particulars of the situation, right? They're not charging more or less money based on the exact services you need. Now, they do have a sliding scale, so the base price of how much you pay for the escrow will depend on the sales price, but the escrows that I work with generally will not add a lot of additional optional fees because they just charge one fee for as much or as little service as your situation may require. It's simpler and it's recommended. The third fee that comes into play is the county transfer tax. Here in San Diego, we have a county transfer tax that's imposed on the sale of real property between a buyer and seller who are unrelated. You can avoid these types of taxes in the case that you're selling to a close relative. But that's not usually the case. Of course, we're selling to the general public, and there's going to be a county transfer tax. The seller customarily pays that in San Diego County, and it's $1.10 per thousand of value of the property. Fair enough. So if your property is at, let's say, $500,000, then you're going to have a county transfer tax of $550. And if your property is at $1 million, then the county transfer tax is still pretty easy to calculate. It's $1,100. That's the county transfer tax. Next cost that you may face during the sale of your property is requested repairs by the buyer. So the buyer will undertake their own inspection, and they may undoubtedly uncover issues with your property. They do. Sometimes those issues are somewhat hidden. A lot of times home sellers know about the condition of their property, and sometimes they don't. So home inspection done by the buyer may reveal certain aspects of the property that will need some attention. Typically, we stick to health and safety issues, and we avoid negotiating over cosmetics. Anything that the buyer could reasonably see while standing at ground level, while looking at the property, is typically not negotiable by way of a repair request. Those cosmetic condition issues, Saturday morning handyman jobs, and other cosmetic issues that might be uncovered in an inspection are not grounds to renegotiate or request repairs or a reduction or credit. Those have to be incorporated into their original purchase price. On the other hand, there are factors that a buyer and or their inspector can discover during an inspection. Going into the attic, going down into the crawl space, talking to neighbors, etc. They may discover certain issues that do rise to a certain level that are health and safety related, structural, or could constitute large or risky repairs later. Those are the ones that are reasonable to negotiate and to try to come to a win-win solution. My job as your agent will be to share with you the customary methods that are working in our current market, provide you advice and input on those, and try to, as best we can, mitigate your costs. One of the ways that we'll do that is by using my vendor pool. I have a strong and reliable group of vendors that have very good pricing and do quality work. And I have had a great deal of success solving difficult transactions by using my vendors to come up with and or make necessary repairs that do satisfy buyers and that don't have to cost a lot for the seller. Next, you might be thinking of staging costs. I do have a stager available that will come in for a consultation. There's a few levels of staging that are possible. We could just do, you could say, handyman cleanup work and basic decluttering and depersonalization of your property. That would be an entry level. The staging consultant will provide you a list that gives you a checklist of all the different kinds of things that they recommend that you should do to get your house into the best showing condition possible, using your current furniture, using your current decor, etc. A simple approach. The next level of approach might involve staging certain rooms or changing the furniture in certain spaces. So, and the last level would be, let's say, full staging, like you see in magazines, or if you go to new construction or, let's say, flipped homes, and then you'll see full staging in bedrooms, in the kitchen, in the dining room, etc. Okay, so staging is typically paid for separately by the seller. However, if you want staging and you're not in a position to invest in the staging, you can negotiate with me and I will invest in the staging on your behalf and be paid the cost of the staging through the commission at closing. It's an option if you need it. Now, when it comes to staging, it is recommended to invest the time and effort because simple changes can make a big difference not only in a buyer's first impression, but even how they think of the whole transaction. So I want to encourage you to take the extra time necessary to get your house into the tip-top showing shape that possible. It will save you a lot of money, not to mention a lot of time, actually, right? The more time that you invest on making your property look nice and right, it will tend to be more desirable, and it may lead to more offers and sooner offers, which means that you'll have to make your house ready for showings less often. So definitely want to encourage you to invest some time and effort in presenting your house the best as possible. In this market, with the median price at $1 million plus, it's important to have the property looking sharp, because folks are investing a lot of money to buy San Diego real estate. Next, I want to talk about seller concessions. This is where the seller is actually going to give some money to the buyer to help them to offset some of the buyer's costs. Now, concessions typically come up either during the offer where the buyer is asking for certain things, like say, for example, they want a termite report and clearance. Well, this is a concession. They're asking the seller, you, to invest in a termite report, costs $95 and up, depending on how big your property is. And then the results of the report, maybe they want you to go and actually clear the termites, they would call that, right? Actually provide a termite clearance, a so-called Section 1 clearance. Okay, well, what is that? Well, that's all of the local treatment chemicals up to and including fumigation of the whole property and repairing the carpentry. Those could have some significant costs. If we're going to negotiate for that, we might want to have that report drawn in advance. So any concession, like if the buyer finds problems with the property or wants certain repairs, we might not want to actually make the repairs, because what if we don't actually do them in a manner that's conforming to what the buyer wants? Or what if somehow we make the repairs and then at the last minute, this buyer doesn't buy your property? Wow, now we've wasted time and money making repairs, and this buyer is not even going to move forward. So instead, it's recommended to do a seller credit to the buyer at closing. This is basically a promise to the buyer. Hey, look, when you close the transaction, we're going to give you a certain amount of money, $250, $500, $1,000, etc., to help you with your closing costs. And in exchange, that money is imaginary earmarked for a particular issue or repair that came up that we don't want to fix at this moment, but that we would prefer that the buyer fix using their own vendors on their own time frame after the close of escrow. Now, a couple of important reminders about running an escrow, closing and selling your home. Always keep the utilities on throughout, including till the end of the closing. Yes, it's true, some folks jumped the gun and they turned off utilities at the property, the water, the gas, the electric, and then we found out later, and it made it difficult for the buyer to finish their inspections and to actually do an appraisal on the property. So keep your utilities on the whole way, and that will not only provide access for the inspector to inspect all the appliances and mechanicals, but also for the appraiser, and we'll be able to run our effective open houses, right? Either with air conditioning or with flushing toilets and so on. So keep utilities on. Thanks. All right, it's not too early to start to think about moving and getting boxes and getting yourself properly ready to move. One of the things that happens with putting a home for sale is that people start to pack. So I want to encourage you to, as you are depersonalizing your property, maybe putting some things away, getting it properly organized, there's no harm in ordering a bunch of boxes and starting to pack. It might be nice to put the boxes in a closet or in the garage, or maybe even just allocate one room in the house as your moving room, where you're going to put all of your boxes as you fill them. When buyers see a property that has moving boxes, they know that the seller is serious about selling and that they've done a good job getting organized. So I want to encourage you, now's the time to order those boxes, get a quote on moving, and decide how you're going to do your move. Now's the time for that. Okay, next, I just want to touch on capital gains considerations, two kinds that do come up. For those of you that have been owning your property here in San Diego for some time, we've enjoyed a great deal of property appreciation, and that means that many of you may need to seek tax advice prior to selling. So now's a good time to discuss with your CPA or tax preparer about the tax implications in selling your home. Will there be any capital gains that have accrued for which you can avoid capital gains because it's your primary residence? Or maybe there are capital gains on the sale of your investment property and you need to estimate how much those are. Also beware, if your property is investment oriented or you haven't lived there 2 of the last 5 years, in which case it is considered investment oriented, then the escrow will ask you to fill in a form from the Franchise Tax Board of the State of California, Form 593C. This is the Franchise Tax Board form for withholding of potential capital gains on the sale of a property in the state of California. If the property is your primary residence, you'll check mark that it's your primary and that you're exempt from capital gains for federal tax purposes. If, on the other hand, you will be paying some capital gains to the federal government, the state of California does expect to execute a withholding of 3 1/3% from the proceeds of the sale of the transaction, and escrow will send those 3 1/3 of the purchase price to the Franchise Tax Board on your behalf. You'll get a refund of that money when you finish and properly file your taxes. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed our conversation about the costs and saving money and the allocation of the costs and money. I'm looking forward to assisting you with your home sale. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jeremy Katz with eXp San Diego House Hunting. Good luck and happy house hunting.